Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, folks. Let me try that again. Good evening, folks. As it usually is after a show is over, we forget how to talk, or at least our vocal cords are a little damaged and beat up. But nonetheless, we are here. Our panel is probably just as tired as I am. They've had a full day chasing the eclipse. And in fact, if you folks did not know, there was an eclipse today. Just in case those are on maybe night shift, you don't watch the news, you don't keep up with anything that's going on that's current affairs, but there was an eclipse, and apparently, so I'm told, we're to blame. Not sure how this happened, but it is what it is. Anyway, it's nice to see that we were thought of during the eclipse, but needless to say, it was pretty cool. And it's hard for folks my age to think that we may never see this again. That was the biggest shock, I think, of the day for me anyway, was the realization, I might never even see this again. And unfortunately, I didn't even get to see it because there was so much cloud. I did see that it got dark. I did see that it cooled down quite profusely, but and the birds, I couldn't get over the birds flying around chirping. Be interested to see what you guys thought. But in the meantime, it was 2017 that this happened before, not to our area as it did down to the States. But what was really interesting was to see how it affected fishing. I'm going to play you that video for you real soon. But before I do, I want to say hello to everyone who's watching. Steve Shaw, thanks again, buddy, for showing up and doing what you do best, my friend. You are definitely an anchor of OOC Nation, and all of the wonderful edits that Steve and Walter continue to do to bring our community together, to focus and promote those who are a part of our community. Thanks so much for those two for what they do. Adrian spoke to you. Adrian is interested in helping out with the CFN Fish Off. We're going to be making an announcement on that very shortly, Mike and I. It was great to see Bob and Lee at CanCast to get caught up and to get an idea of what we're going to be seeing, what we're going to be using and giving away this coming May long weekend to Canada Day for the CFN Fish Off. So stay tuned to that. Mike and I are going to be ironing out all the details. Jim, as always, my friend, it's a pleasure to see you. Every time I shake your hand, I hope some of the luck rubs off on me, at least some of your fishing luck. I know you've had a run of bad luck when it comes to boats, trucks, and just about anything that gets on your way on the road. But nice to see you're still upright, Jim, and all is well, and you're ready to get fishing, because there's a lot of us that live vicariously through you. Richard, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. And we are going to be getting together very shortly to get some logos, some ideas, and to iron out some details in regards to some upcoming swag that CFN is going to be pushing. So I'm looking forward to that. Rich, thanks for being so patient, because as you can imagine, it has been extremely busy in CFN land. Lloyd, thanks for all you do when it comes to sharing. You are a huge part of spreading the message. So thanks again, Lloyd. And Dean, great seeing you at CanCast. You've been at a lot of the shows. We've run into one another, not physically, but we have run into one another at quite a few of the shows. So, Dean, thanks so much for your support. Ed, always a pleasure to see you. Great seeing you mingling around. Bob, wearing the CFN jersey, dude. Yeah, baby. Love it. Absolutely love it. Now, so glad to see this gentleman, because I want to say, of all the individuals at the show, fisheasy.ca was the smartest. And why do I say that? Because the one thing that you don't see at these shows that you used to see, because things have changed, are bags. And this was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I saw these black bags being tossed around and carried around and full of stuff all over CanCast. So brilliant idea to fisheasy.ca. And of course, we're going to be teaming up with these guys to give you and provide those who are maybe not our part of our community, soon to become part of our community, or perhaps already are and are just looking to, go somewhere and fish. Fisheasy.ca is a great resource. It's going coast to coast when it comes to all the resorts and opportunities that Canadian anglers have to go fishing and enjoy fishing. So we look forward to that. And as I mentioned, of course, it was CanCast yesterday, I should say, not last. I've got Texas coming in here, so I apologize for that. But needless to say, it was a lot of fun. It was packed, and we're going to get to that. Of course, Moose is going to be joining me. We have Lawrence coming in as well. Jim's going to be with us, and a special treat with Jay Barnucz and Owen Brock, and of course, Trevor Barnucz. They're going to be sharing with us what that trip was like down to the States, what it was like to participate in the Bassmaster Kayak Championship. And we're going to get a firsthand view from those folks. John, nice to see you, my friend. Eve, thanks, dude. You're getting around as well, man. Really appreciate seeing you. Nick, what's up, buddy? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, dude, that was awesome. Awesome to see those bags floating around. Great stuff. Well, it was CanCast. It just happened. We have a couple of announcements, but this is what it looked like just prior to it starting. Yeah, that was the beginning of what was a great show. And those who went, came by our booth, went around all the other booths. It was awesome to see so many people enjoying what was, and what I consider, the last show of the show season. So needless to say, we'll be talking a lot more about that with Jay and Moose, and of course, Big Jim, who's going to be coming up very, very soon. But before we get to that, of course, we have some announcements. It's not a typical CFN Live if we do not talk about some of the upcoming events that are going to be happening in our community, around our community. But I just wanted to mention there is going to be a raffle for Next Gen CFN. This is a kids event that goes on every year. There's actually two events. One goes in Keswick. The other one goes in Lindsay. One's Father's Day weekend. The other one is in August. We'll get those dates up, but in the meantime, we are putting together a raffle. There's some really cool prizes that are available. Handlebars Musky Lures just sent over one at CanCast. So we are starting to build a bit of a collection, but needless to say, there's some really cool prizes. And this is grassroots stuff. Next Gen CFN and the kids derbies that go on under that flagship really mean a lot to the kids, means a lot to big brothers, big sisters who are looking for events to take their little brother and little sister to. These kids are at risk, not necessarily the best of upbringings. It's certainly not their fault in almost all the cases. It's just, unfortunately, things happen in people's lives, and sometimes it's hard to balance it all, whether we agree with it, whether we understand it. At the end of the day, we have to respect it. And for these kids to have a day out where they get to take a rod home and get a full belly and a lot of fun, we'd love for you, for the RCFN community, to jump up and help out in a big way. We don't need a lot of help, but every little bit helps, and we're hoping to get there. So stay tuned for that. Of course, Horwood Lake Lodge, it is going to be our 6th annual CFN retreat. It is August 11th to the 17th. I can't believe the price. The price is still going to remain at $875 for that week, plus taxes. It includes a place to lay your head. It includes all the food you could possibly want. Great fishing, I might add. That's most important. The fishing is absolutely phenomenal. We have a fish fry every night. And, of course, if you need a boat, if you need fuel, and you need bait, Horwood Lake Lodge will help you out. And did I mention the fishing's pretty good? Beautifully situated on Horwood Lake Lodge. This is a peninsula. It is a drive-to fish camp. As I said, beautiful scenery. Breathtaking scenery, but the fishing is phenomenal. And from what I understand, there's only the one cabin left. So, and it sleeps 4. Reach out the door some more, and perhaps maybe it'll be you that occupies that last cabin. In the meantime, as I said, look forward to seeing you. Please get a hold of Warren and Doris. That's the information that you need. And, of course, the 3rd annual OFC Nation Retreat is going to be happening at Camp McIntosh. All the information is there on the screen. It is 3 days, 2 nights. Total is $410. $205 per is the extra night. That's if you don't have a boat. If you have a boat, it's even cheaper. So reach out, please, to Tracy and Andre at Camp McIntosh, and they will help you with anything that you need to know. We are about at half capacity right now. So please don't delay. Get your butt booked in a bed so that you can be a part of the OFC Nation 3rd annual retreat at Camp McIntosh. Situated right where the French River flows into Georgian Bay, this body of water houses a multitude of species, including smallmouth and muskie, notably. You've got tons of pike in there as well. There's walleye, depending on the season, but they can be caught, as we managed to get a few last year. It is a little bit early for them to be in the bay, but needless to say, they can be caught. They're there. You just got to figure out how to catch them. But it is a smallmouth factory. You're going to catch lots of toothy critters, including muskie that are potentially that big. Pike, as I mentioned, Sean has a beautiful smallmouth, so does moose. But needless to say, if you want to be a part of the OFC Nation crew that is going to go up and enjoy yet another fantastic weekend, please reach out to Andre and Tracy at Camp McIntosh and get your butt booked in a bed. I look forward to it, as I always do. It is the highlight of our summer because of the events and the people that attend these retreats. We look forward to giving out some great stuff from the sponsors. It's just a great time. Fantastic, fantastic time. And we look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, we've got Big Jim coming up right after a word from our sponsor. Or should I say, not from our sponsor. This is Jim's intro, and I love it.
When he was born, he tried to reel in the umbilical cord. Bass named him as their personal best. His power pole came with a stripper. Forward-facing sonar uses him to find fish. Chuck Norris is his co-angler. He is the most interesting fisherman in the world. Stay fishing, my friends.
Big Jim McLaughlin, how you doing, my friend?
What's going on?
I see. Look, we caught him busy tying.
You gotta keep me working, gotta pay the mortgage.
Unreal, dude. It never stops with you. You are a true machine.
My new shirt.
Love it, dude.
Like Mark said, my shirt was looking ratty, so he had to get me a new one. And then he also got me a nice hoodie.
Oh, sweet.
So I can't, like Tammy said to me last night, I put the t-shirt on, I showed it to her, and she said, I didn't think anything could make you look better.
Whoa.
Apparently it didn't get me anywhere, but
And she hasn't been home since.
she hasn't been home since.
Wow. Well, Jim, as I
I got a
said,
nice hat from the guys at
beautiful, dude.
CanCast.
Look at that. I will. I have to say though, dude, you're a trooper. You ended up at the gym this morning. You were on your feet a lot of yesterday, a lot of moving around. It's not easy, but we truly appreciate the effort of you being able to make it to these events still. And as it was once said to you, I believe yesterday by the one and only Kyle Carruthers, people actually like you. They really like you.
That's what I told you. I went over to the little gathering they had.
Yeah.
At Chula's Joe's, and I did a circle, and it took me an hour and a half. I got back to the hotel room. I had to put ice on my hand. I shook so many hands just going around the room once. It was, because I don't usually go to those things anymore. So I need my beauty sleep.
I hear you, dude. And as I said, I'm glad you got it because you look beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, and today is one of those days that probably wouldn't have mattered because it got dark at one point, Jim. We were dealing with an eclipse, and some of us who aren't that great to look at, we got a few minutes of darkness.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like I said when we talked about it earlier, I experienced this back in the 60s in high school or in grade school, and I remember them bringing us out of the classroom and putting us all in the hallway, and you had to face the wall.
Wow.
Because it was going to burn your eyes out of your head.
Unreal.
And I know that it can do damage, but
yes, yeah.
I did some research on that. I looked that up, and then I heard a thing on one of the news stations, one of the American networks. And the last eclipse in the States that they had, the total eclipse, they had less than 100 reports of anything to do with eye trouble. And they weren't even sure how many of them would have been attributed to the actual, eclipse itself, that maybe they were things that had already happened or were going to happen, So it's kind of cool, but I ain't taking a chance. If somebody tells me I shouldn't be looking at the sun. I mean, you go out on a sunny day and look at the sun, you don't look at it for long.
Exactly.
I mean, I no one needs to tell me what the sun can do. I mean, I got more of those cancer spots on my arm here. I got blood dripping out of them. They're going to have to cut a bunch off me again.
Yikes. Well, Jim, I wanted to find out what happens to fish during an eclipse. And of course, we couldn't really gauge it based on what happened today. But what was interesting, you mentioned that this has happened before. And I want to say the epicenter was down in the States. Last time this happened was 2017. So I was able to go back into the archives, and a guy by the name of Gene Jensen put together a little video of him being on the water, and I'd like everybody to have a listen because it's actually kind of cool. Nothing earth-shattering, but it's going to lead into, if anybody was fishing today, I'd really like to see what kind of success you had. Have a listen.
Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen, and today is November 21st, 2017, and it's the day of the eclipse. I'm on Watts Bar Lake, the center of the totalitarian whatever path. So I will get a total eclipse right where I'm at. My goal is to figure out what happens during the eclipse and catch some fish, so stay tuned. Frogs, the gray tree frogs think it's dusk. You hear them starting to chirp.
Oh, that's just freaky what I said to you earlier.
Yeah.
Same thing with the cicadas. We're right in the middle of it. This is awesome. Can't get over how awesome this is. Dang, I just went over our school fish while I was thinking about how awesome it was. So let's do a quick night fishing video. I fish the same thing at night that I do during the day. Sometimes add a little bit of noise to it. But I still fish drop shots and Texas rigs and jigs, and it's dark. We're at total eclipse right now. That's awesome. It is 2:31 in the afternoon, and we night fishing, folks. That was it. It's starting to get brighter now. This is just cool. You see the stars? My opinion is that much light change that quickly turns them off. They turned on for just a split second. They schooled for a second. I caught a couple, and then the bite just died because they thought it was getting dark and they thought they were gonna have to transition shallow. Now they're freaked out and they gotta transition back to being deep because it's getting bright again. And so, in my opinion, you ain't gonna catch a whole lot during the next eclipse. This video probably won't even exist during the next eclipse, but it is what it is.
So I'd love to know how everybody did today, if in fact they were out on the water.
So you had 4 minutes. You had 4 minutes roughly to catch a fish.
Yeah.
Well, how often do you go 4 minutes on the water without catching a fish? It's known to happen. You
Right.
know? But I almost died when he mentioned the frogs. I just mentioned to you the spot I sat today coming out again to watch it. I thought I was going to get back to another spot, but I ended up stopping beside a little swamp on one of the side roads. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it starting to happen. I got my glasses. I'm out the side of the truck looking up. And all of a sudden, all I can hear is those little, the tree frogs start peeping. There was like millions of them.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I watched this happen, and I could not believe how dark it got.
Yeah.
Like it got he was not in the middle of it, or else his wasn't a total eclipse that they had, because where I was, it was 99.9, they said, and it was black. Like, I mean, the ground looked dark. Like, I was absolutely shocked. All the lights came on. It was just amazing to see. And then I'm sitting there and I was answering an email on my phone while it was winding down the other way. And all of a sudden I realized there's no frogs peeping. They stopped. So they reacted to the dark, you know? So it's kind of interesting. I'm sure there's little things like that you could pick out, you know?
True enough. The one thing, as I said, I noticed it got cool. It was amazing how the temperature dropped immediately. You mentioned the darkness.
Yeah, 4 degrees.
Yeah.
By the time I got back home, it was back up even hotter.
And the birds, I couldn't get over.
Was it crows you saw?
It seemed like all of them. We
have. I saw massive amounts of crows come from nowhere.
Yeah.
And crows usually go to roost somewhere for the night.
Yeah.
And I think this is what they were starting to do. And I'm sure that they would have, if they didn't get to where they planned on going, I'm sure they would have stopped and gone back about, you know, whatever they were doing, whatever they were eating or you know, or whatever it was.
100%. And to Tony's point, was your stomach grumbling? You're right, Tony. It was the first time we had 2 breakfasts and 2 dinners all in the same day, if you followed the celestial darkness. But yeah, and seagulls were making all kinds of racket. I didn't see much action with the Canadian geese, but we have all kinds of like chickadees and barn swallows and whatever that are in our industrial area. And it was just a chorus of bird calling. That was the biggest.
That's what they do in the evening.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who's back? The ospreys are back on the pole.
No way. Oh,
yeah, when I drove in the laneway last night from CanCast, I could hear them.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it to Tammy this morning, and she says, "Oh my God, I was in the office on Saturday and I couldn't hear myself think." So I wonder if Ozzy's out there.
That would be nice. Wouldn't it be cool?
Would
you be able to pick him out though, Jim?
Sorry?
Would you be able to pick him out? Would you be able to?
Looks like an osprey.
Well, okay, outside of the obvious, but would you be able? Is there any identifying markings or anything? Okay.
I think he would have shaken his collar by now that I had on. No, but wouldn't it be cool if I was sitting out here and the bugger flew down and landed beside me or something and looked at, you know, like,
because if I'm not mistaken, when you let it go, it took off and then came back and did sort of like a flyby.
It's sort of, yeah, he went way up like 300, 400 feet in the air. And I was talking to Brad there, the Canadian cowboy.
Yeah.
He's got a huge aviary at his house with hawks and goshawks and barn owls and attack eagles and all kinds of stuff there. In fact, he invited me down on Saturday when he was in Gagnon's there. I want to go down and and see it, because it's sort of like an interest I have, and I've always really liked birds of prey. And but the racket out here, but he went out and buzzed. He went way up like 300-400 feet in the air, and he was squawking. You could hear him call. I don't know whether he was just saying like I'm alive, you like feeling like the fly again, you know,
It
or
might
if he
be.
was looking. Maybe he recognized where he was, and because he was, he got pretty big. Like he was pretty. He wasn't big yet, but he was. He had all his markings and everything, and maybe he recognized where he was, and he was calling for the rest of the family, and they already abandoned him and flew south. But he's in rehab now. He's got issues. The family abandoned him.
His 15 minutes of fame went to his head, is what you're saying. I get it. I get it.
He was 6 weeks at Sandy Pine.
Wow.
When I brought him back, I'm pretty sure, because he came down, he buzzed right back by us, and then he went up and he looked over where the nest. I can hear them right now.
Really?
Back here, where I'm in the office, out by
Yep.
the tennis court, and I can hear them. They're up there just squawking for all they're worth.
Speaking of your office, and it's great seeing you busy tying, because let's face it, it is soft water season, and everybody's starting to gear up. They're taking a stock of what they've got, what they need. With you busy tying, I'd like to reflect back on CanCast, because there's an individual that I've gotten to know just this year. Really I don't even think I can honestly say I knew even existed prior to this past year. Jeff Penner of Jeff's Jigs.
Yeah.
I want your take, Jim, because as I said, that's
all the kid does is sit and make jigs, eh?
It's amazing, but he's not only just good at his craft, like good at what he does, but he's such a polite kid. Seems to be so well grounded. I'd love to shake his parents' hands, because they've done a fantastic job with that young lad. But he's so focused, and being in the industry as long as you have, doing what you do, knowing your craft, becoming a craftsman of your craft. You see an upstart like Jeff, and I don't know how long he's been doing it, but he makes some great stuff.
Hey, there's a few of them out there now.
It's got to bring a twinkle to your eye, or a sense of it's got to bring a good feeling to you, knowing that this is the next generation of tires.
It's really neat to watch. Yeah, there's a couple of other kids. There's a couple of other kids that are not so much kids either, that have got into to tying jigs and stuff like that, and they're having a great time doing it. Eh? So there's one young lad that I know that's doing it, and he asked me what he had to do to get better, and he told me he'd like to have a business. He's over in northwestern Ontario, and I told him, I said, well, if you want to turn it into a business, one thing you got to do is you got to learn to do it faster. Because he showed me that he tied on the weekend. He tied 17 jigs, and 17 jigs on the weekend. That's that's not even an hour for me. Wow. And I know even Jeff can't do it that fast. I did by the numbers of jigs that he has. He tells me about it,
Mm-hmm.
But it's like anything else. When you tied, I don't know how many I've tied, hundreds of thousands. You sort of have a tendency to get faster at it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get faster at it.
And I would have to say he's in that in between stage where his attention to detail to make sure that he's producing good quality jigs is at the forefront. And that
he's going to discover girls soon, though.
Yeah,
and that's usually what happens with most of the young jig tires. They discover girls, and that's the end of it. Yeah, I know. The young lad was out there the other night with the car when I got there at the Shoeless Joe's. He came over and said hi, because I hadn't met him yet. He came over and introduced himself, and he was a pretty cool little kid there. And he was working hard at the show, trying to sell his jigs, and it's cool.
But really, and it was cool to see, Jim. A lot of purchasing went on Sunday.
Well, there wasn't too many people without bags there.
As I said, I mentioned fish.ca. The idea to print those bags was genius, and to see the number of bags that were full, it wasn't just being carried around; they were full of stuff.
Yeah, I think he said he gave out in the first 3 hours or something. He gave out 300.
Yep.
I saw him do a post, so he probably gave out at least 500 for the day. I told him keep me one for each hand.
Any surprises? Any great takeaways from the show? Did you hook up with anybody you haven't seen in a while?
Andy Clements came to visit.
Okay.
Andy Clements used to fish years ago. He was a wonderful angler. He used to fish with Pete Pokaluk, and he came to visit, and it was cool because he's talking to Bob Mahoney, and he thought somehow like Andy's getting older, and he was talking to Bob, and he thought that he was Lee.
Yep, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
You know, but he was there, and it was nice to see he had somebody with him, you know, helping him around. But Andy's a great guy. We did a lot of stuff together. He was the agent of record for Shimano in Ontario for a long time, and that's where Lee came out of.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful to see him. He made it very plain. He came in the door and he said, "I came here." He said, "I got directions. I only came to see you, Big Jim." And then I saw him about an hour after, and I says to him, "Hey, I thought you only came to see me." he burst out laughing. He was having a great time, you know. He was going around. He bumped into some people that he used to know, because you know he's been retired, and I don't even think he spends much time down south, anymore. He's got to be like, I think Andy's well in his 80s.
Jeez.
So it's just the fact that he's out and around there is really cool.
That's
and
awesome.
He's a wonderful fisherman, boy.
Well, I have to tip my hat to the staff at CanCast. Right off the bat, Kyle Carruthers, solid individual. You put on a heck of a show. It was great to see the vendors extremely happy with all the purchasing that went on. There wasn't too many folks, as you said, running around with empty bags and hadn't purchased anything. I couldn't believe the number of rods that I saw walking around. Sean McCall, Mark Gunther, that team.
No, those guys did a wondrous job.
Absolutely.
And I think it's only going to get better. I don't know what they're going to do to make it better. I know that they do have some tricks up their sleeve that they're looking at. They made it very plain. But I just think it's going to be it's if you're an angler and you don't go to that, you better have wife, issues that you have to be there, family issues, kids issues, like something that's making that you just have to be there. Else you need to turn in your fishing license, because boy, that place is it's just fishing. And I mean, you saw them come in. They were all, the biggest lineup was over at the other building where the tackle swap was.
Yes,
and it was just like at your show and Brad's. Like, I mean, they came in, they were like locusts. They went to the tackle swap area, and I saw guys there that had bags. They had a white grocery bag in each hand, just filled with stuff that they bought at the tackle swap part.
That's awesome.
It's really, really cool. I think that might get a little bigger.
I'll be honest with you, Jim. I want to say I was nervous. I was anxious about how this year was going to unfold, not just from the show perspective, but just the industry in general. Things are definitely amok right now when it comes to interest rates and the financial focus that are people having to recenter. Lives are changing, and it's inevitable. And it's just nice to see that fishing was still at the mainstay. And these shows are just an example of that. Folks love their pastime. They love getting outdoors, and it's love to see that they're still spending money.
Yeah, it was really nice to see it. I saw a lot of guys, and one of the guys was saying, all these guys are here, they're buying stuff over used stuff and everything. And I said, yeah, but the guys that are buying the used stuff are giving money to the guys that are behind the tables. And at 1 o'clock, those guys with the handful of money were over buying new stuff out of the other building.
Yeah.
I saw one of the guys in Mark LaBelle's booth, Weapons of Mass Destruction. And he told me, he said, I said, how come you left your tables? He said, because there's almost nothing left on them. The wife's there, he said, and I wrote $2 for anything on the table.
Yeah.
And he told me when he went back, there was like 15 things on the table that was left. And he said, when I got there, he said, I had bags, boxes. He told me I had a 2-wheel cart, and I brought in 3 or 4 big totes and a whole bunch of bags, and it was all gone.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then the guys that bought that will fish with half of it, and next year they'll be renting the table to sell the stuff they didn't
Exactly. It's one big vicious cycle. But needless to say, everybody, it's working. And the deals, as Fish Easy mentioned, the deals were incredible. Bubba had some fantastic deals. I loved what Mike Parker and Handlebars does with those mystery bags.
Yep.
You know, it's $100 value, but when you look inside the bag, there's a lot more than $100 in the bag. But needless to say, there were some really, really cool deals to be had. And that's what that show spawns. It spawns the deals. So awesome job, Kyle. Awesome job, Sean and Mark. And
Yeah, they did a wonderful job. Like that piece of drone footage that Peter got of
yes,
the cars in the parking lot and everything full. And you saw Kyle. He never stopped yesterday.
no,
He never stopped. He was on it. Like I messaged him and I said to him, "Hey, look, I'm going to get out of here about 3 o'clock." He says, "Don't move at 3 o'clock. I'll come find you." 2 minutes to 3, he's there, and he had the guy because I was parked outside the fence, so I didn't have to go all the way around the whole building to get to my truck. He had the security guard just pull the fence apart so I could just slide out because my truck was like 20 feet from the back door,
nice.
and things like that. And that's the way he is. So he takes care of Big Jim. I like him.
That's awesome, Jim. What have you got upcoming this week?
Well, I started tying 750 jigs for BJ's. What did I do today? Oh, I had other jigs I'm going to deliver tomorrow morning. And then we got to finish up. There's 3 or 4 things I got to straighten out with Just Fishing, and it should be live probably Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
There's just a couple of things that have to be straightened out and fixed up. And
we'll have to get that ad for the next issue. We obviously ran out of time to get it in this one, but
it's for the summer
Okay, so really cool idea, and I want to take this opportunity because this is truly this is Jim. This is Big Jim. His heart is sometimes bigger than his brain, and we love him for it because all of those charters that were at the Made in Canada Tackle Show.
Yeah, you had to have been at Made in Canada or helped out CFN.
Fantastic. We will be featuring you in the inside cover. So it's basically going to be 2 pages, the inside
the
cover,
middle of the magazine. Yeah.
Just Fishing. And we're going to get our good buddy Steve on it. We're going to get the logos from these charter captains that were at the show and help out CFN. And we want to help. We want to help. It's been a tough year. Not a lot of charters have been booked already. And we want to, sort of springboard this and hopefully become the catalyst to what is going to be, and hopefully a busy season for all you charter captains. Jim, as always, dude, our half hour flies by, my friend. I can't thank you enough for what you do, the fact that you're able to sacrifice your time, yourself, physically. Dude, you're a soldier, man. You are.
I got my reward yesterday, shaking 500 hands.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
Yvonne Brown from the ladies, Ontario Women Anglers. There, she goes to Bobo and Lee and says to him, "Hey, tell him to keep his fan club out of our booth." Because where I was sitting between the 2 booths, people kept lining up, right?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. It's when I was leaving yesterday, and I told you about Kyle walking me out. I've been heckling Izumi all day. And I went over and he jumped up. He was just about to leave because he wanted to go spend an hour with Tommy, his grandson, before he went back home. And he says to me, I went over to him when he called me. He says, "Hey, Big Jim." And I called, he came over and he pulls me down to hug him. And we exchanged a big hug, when Bob Izumi whispers in your ear, I love you, buddy.
Chokes all of us up. Chokes us all up, buddy. Love it. Well, listen,
we've been together from the very beginning, eh?
You have.
I know he's not a Shimano guy now, but I look by it, eh?
He's still an angler. He's still a Canadian.
I sent a guy over that had a Shimano hat to get it signed. And not only did he sign it, he stood up and held it up like this and took a picture with the guy with it, eh?
Well played. Well played. Well, Jim, hopefully you get some rest, dude. Hopefully you get lots of jigs tied, and we look forward to seeing you in the gym tomorrow, my friend.
Well, I'm going to take a day off the gym tomorrow, I think.
Even better. Even better.
I want to get this stuff done, and then Wednesday, I think, is going to be pain day.
Attaboy.
So
you take care.
Let's do it.
Okay,
take care,
man.
kiddies.
All the best, my friend. We got Lawrence coming up right after a word from our sponsor.
What is Flash Boost? Shimano designed innovative Flash Boost technology. It keeps flashing, which attracts fish whether in a pause or while retrieving. The mirror plate, which is fixed by a spring inside the body, vibrates with the lure action to generate diffuse reflection. Even if you stop the lure action, the inner plate will move and continue to flash, giving the lure a sense of life and inviting a fish bite. This is Flash Boost.
And this is Lawrence Gunther, who has his mic off. We got to get you to turn your mic on, Lawrence.
Hey, how's that? Is that better?
And friggin' tastic.
Sorry about that.
No worries, Lawrence. So I'm intrigued because you said that you went down to the eclipse festivities today.
Yeah,
And
down to the St. Lawrence.
can you please share with us what your experience of the eclipse was?
Yeah, so a friend of mine has a nice property there with a big dock stretching out 80 feet into the St. Lawrence River from the North Shore, sort of between Prescott and Brockville. So he invited us down, but my goodness, the crowd of people. I've never seen Highway 416 heading south out of Ottawa as busy as it was today. Like we left at 1 o'clock, right? And it was just 417 was jammed. Turn on the 416, it was jammed. It was, they say between 250 and 500,000 people went to Kingston to watch this.
Jeez.
And, you know, many more went to Cornwall. We were going down to Brockville and it was just choked with people. So we get there, the eclipse is at 3:24 or something like that. We arrived at 3:15. It was getting dark. We're in the, the path of the complete eclipse. And we walk out on the dock with my friends, and as it about 5 minutes before complete eclipse, the geese start all panicking. The geese, they're all start honking and they fly away because they go, oh my God, it's night. We got to get home. So that was the first. Second thing I noticed, the wind started picking up. You know that little wind as the sun just sort of drops down on the horizon. You get that little wind that pushes along the ground. That picked up, that cool breeze, and it got cold. The temperature just dropped. This is at 3:30 in the afternoon, right? It was 15 degrees out, and all of a sudden it's breezy, it's cold, and everyone's going, oh my God, it's dark. Like dark, I'm told it was dark as if it was 30 minutes after sunset, right?
Yep.
But the amazing thing is we were just inside the path of total eclipse. And if we looked across the river to the South Shore on the American side, they were outside of the eclipse path. So that shoreline over there on the American side was lit up as if it was still, middle of the day. So it just this black, you think it was a black storm coming, but it was just the shadow of the moon that just swept along the river. The river's running east-west there. So it's coming from the west. It just swept along the river, covers us over. We're surrounded by, darkness for about 3.5 minutes. And then it just passed away. So we had set up some audio recording equipment there 2 days ago to record the sounds of terrestrial life, birds and squirrels and such, and as another recorder underwater to record the sounds of aquatic life. We record that for 2 days, then during the eclipse, and then 2 days after the eclipse. And then these SD cards will be sent into a research center, and everyone who takes part in the citizen science will then submit their SD cards, and they will listen to see how animals and birds and aquatic life reacts to this complete solar eclipse. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And if you go on and just try and quickly Google some information on how this affects animals, you get varying degrees of how it does affect. And what we saw today was said that it would happen from science. You talked about the birds. Couldn't believe how loud the birds were leading up to the darkness. You mentioned, of course, it's obviously the temperature is going to drop, but it's kind of neat that it happened at night, in the afternoon, as if it was night. And the way it led up, it was almost like a quick time lapse, if you will, of what it looks like when
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sun sets.
Like a little mini night, like it just like the sun, it's like the sun is setting, the sky turns red, and then boom, it's dark. Just that fast. I mean, normally we experience eclipse on the edge, right? And it just gets a little darker and then it brightens up again. But this was totally it dropped us right into nighttime. It was quite impressive. Of course, the tendency is you want to take off the goggles there and look and see where the sun went, right? But and then it's got to be careful. The temptation to look, even the cameras on your smartphones. If you try to take pictures of the eclipse, it'll destroy your camera.
Yep. Yes, and fortunately for that, and eye problems and everything else, and I hope we don't hear of it in the future. But to your point, I think we might, because there are some people who are curious and they want to see it with the naked eye. But for those who did not, we're thankful that they didn't, because they're not going to have any after effects. But we are lucky to a certain degree that this only comes a certain time and every so often, so that we don't have to, stop work or stop living or whatever. Because can you imagine if this happened every week?
All the kids' schools were closed. They didn't want to have the kids in this path of total eclipse, in the playground, staring at the sun, right? So they closed the schools today around here.
Mothers and fathers had to go pick up their kids from daycare.
Yeah.
Like it created a bit of a mess. Parking was an issue. You have people coming across the border to witness it. So we are kind of lucky that doesn't happen too often. But what we are lucky is that this happens every Monday here at CFN Live. Lawrence Gunther joins us. And if you've missed any of those Mondays, they're available over at Bluefish Radio. So go over and archive anything that you're looking to look up, because Lawrence has talked about a lot of topics, a lot of issues, and shares an awful lot of news. So if you want to head over there and look at some of the past podcasts that we've done, by all means do so.
Bluefishradio.com, or just, ask your smart speaker, play the Bluefish Radio Show, the Bluefish Radio Show, and you'll get all the episodes from the most recent on back.
What have you been busy? You weren't with us last week.
No.
Obviously, you were doing some study and getting ready for something that's upcoming that I'm sure you're going to share with us at some point. But in the meantime, what else have you been busy? Because my Lord, you're a busybody.
Oh, just grant writing season, my friend. It's, we got 6 applications in for grants for different projects. It's all related to anglers, citizen scientists, stewards, just empowering people who love fish, who love fishing, to go to that next level. And I think it's such an important role we can all take, in terms of advancing science and making sure science is pointing in the right direction, right? As anglers, we know what some of these issues are that are happening out there in nature. We experience that. We watch it unfold year after year, maybe even month by month, maybe even day by day. But we know, we observe just from the quality of fishing, from what we, the size of the fish, the healthiness of the fish, the number of the fish, what else is in the water. And so getting involved with citizen science and finding ways to report that. So we're really pushing that angle, and hopefully get some grants on that, so we can support anglers across Ontario and even across Canada to get more involved in stewardship and citizen science. And I'm hoping there's going to be some interest in that, and we'll get some funding to support that. So stay tuned.
Cool stuff. I did want to talk to you about something that I've been doing a lot of research on. And of course, it is a hot topic that we've talked about at great length. These fish cages, rearing fish in these pens.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the government that has sponsored this initiative, and perhaps you might be able to help me. It's either Japan or China, but they have built a floating cage that looks very, very much like a ship. And this ship is not anchored. So the idea of it is it has the typical cages, but it's able to move. So it's able to move in the direction that the wind is blowing towards. So, you don't have those horrific marine events where these cages get broadsided or pushed because of wind and waves. So they're able to maneuver it. But the best part of it is they're able to maneuver it in such a way that you are not filtrating and smothering the bottom and concentrating all that poop and unused food in one area. So you can spread this thing out. I'm going to find out a little bit more about it, but I kind of by accident jumped on it. But it's extremely interesting because it is a new concept that I think could work when it comes to these kind of pens. If in fact, because you look at the numbers, Lawrence, and you can certainly jump in. We need to find an alternative motive or an alternative means to produce fish for food, because we're just not going to do it naturally. Like, the natural stocks are just not. There's no way to sustain our take. So it's interesting to come up. It's interesting to see new ideas that they're coming up with to make this pen project more environmentally friendly.
There's so much aquaculture that takes place on land now.
Yeah.
And, we've seen attempts to do the fin fish aquaculture on land in Florida, on the west coast of Canada, on the east coast of Canada. There's about 100 projects around the world. And when I mean fin fish, Atlantic salmon, rainbow trout, things like that. The big fish, the big predators, to raise them in containers on land where they have circulation and fresh water and food and oxygen and temperature. It's all controlled very precisely. And it's a challenge. There's a huge investment in all this. And, if you get it right, it works great. But if you screw up one little thing, it's a disaster. And you have giant fish kills. It can be done. But this idea of having sort of an offshore, that's how this whole pen aquaculture was originally, pitched.
Yeah.
That they would put these pens out there, or out away from shore, away from any problems that would cause the spawning creatures that come near shore, anything that has to do with beaches, the smell, the usage, the sightliness, all that stuff. But then they found pretty quick that it's fine. But like I said, Scotty, when there's a storm, man, these things get ripped apart. They get busted open because they're anchored to the bottom. They get torn at and pulled on, and then they bust open, and all your fish are gone. So they moved them in behind islands. They moved them into the mouths of rivers, protected from the savages of the open water, right? The big waves, the big storms. And of course, what's that mean? Well, we see it on the West Coast. It interferes with wild salmon accessing the rivers and the smolt's coming back down the rivers. They have to swim through this, horrific kind of very, very nasty situation. And there's a lot of problems involved with that. So having a way of doing this offshore, moving these cages around, so the fish can swim, exercise, they get fresh water all the time. They're not living in their own filth. And it's that's a possibility. Is it going to be cheaper than doing it on land by having one of these giant fish? Because you're talking, it takes months and months and months to raise these fish. I mean, you think about a salmon. I mean, you're putting them in there at a certain size, and then you have to move them to another cage to make sure they get to the full size that you want. So it's a lot of time involved. It can be several 2 to 3 years of having just a ship driving around with cages underneath it.
Yeah,
is it going to be cheaper? I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be cheaper, but one thing that I have to admit I got wrong, because when I was watching this segment, I'm like, those aren't salmon, those aren't trout, and if you look closer, they're wild tuna.
Yeah, they're wild.
They aren't wild anymore. They're actually raising tuna in these cages.
So what they do is, and I've seen these ships, they'll go out, 4 or 5 large ships with helicopters. They'll find a juvenile tuna in a school of juvenile tuna. They'll encircle the school, and then they'll bring the tuna back to land, and they'll keep them in pens, and they'll grow them out, right? It's just like you get a calf and you grow it out until it's a harvestable size. And it can take a year and a half to grow these fish out. But it's a very slow process. You can only pull these lassoed. They're almost like they're lassoed in a big net, but the fish are swimming as the net is being moved across the water. They have to deal with sharks. Sharks come around. They want to bust into the nets and get at these tuna. I mean, for them, it's, wow, look at that. There's dinner. So they have to always fend off the sharks and fix the nets that get torn by the sharks. They can't go too fast because they'll crush the tuna in the backs of the nets and break their fins and tails and such. So they move very slowly once they're lassoed and bringing them back to land. It's quite the process, but if they can do it, if they can catch some 2-3 foot bluefin tuna and grow them out to 6-7 feet long, and it's money. It's free money.
Well, I hope that it is, because the one the one complaint that I hear all the time when it comes to farm raised fish is what the diet is, what they're feeding these fish. And from what it looked like, they were feeding them, although it was dead, it was fish. So it was somehow as close as they could, symbolizing what is their natural diet by what they were feeding them. But I don't know. I was just stunned. I didn't think we could do that with tuna, but just as you explained it, now it makes sense. If you corral a wild school and then bring them to a pen, and they either take or they don't when you throw the fish, at the surface. But needless to say, from what I saw, it was working, and I stand corrected. I didn't realize that we were farming tuna.
Yeah. In Australia, it happens a lot down there. There's more juvenile bluefin tuna down that way for some reason. I guess that's where they spawn, and it's quite a business. But it's a long game, right? It's the long game.
Now, I know you probably have come with lots of news because you had an extra Monday to prepare for it. I say at this point, the stage is all yours.
Well, the first thing I want to mention is if you want to try to win a $200 gift card and support recreational fishing here in Canada, in the north of Canada especially, and tourism in the north of Canada, the International Game Fish Association has asking for people to participate for anglers to participate in a survey of what it would take to get you to want to go north and fish in northern Canada, and especially in Indigenous areas, and support Indigenous-led recreational fishing, guided fishing, right? So I did the survey. It was interesting.
What were some of the things that can you share any of the advice that you provided?
Yeah, they want to know, are you willing to pay extra to have an Indigenous element brought to your fishing experience? Do you want to eat Indigenous sort of traditional food? Do you want to live in an Indigenous traditional sort of accommodations, have other experiences that are not fishing related that are Indigenous? Is that important to you? Are you willing to pay more for an Indigenous guide over a non-Indigenous guide? Things like that, right? Will you go to, and this was an interesting one, will you go to a lodge or a resort run by an Indigenous community that doesn't believe in catch and release fishing, that you have to, harvest everything you catch? Will you go to a lodge like that? Because in some cultures, they believe that if you catch it, you kill it, you eat it. There's no letting it go, because that's called playing with your food, and some Indigenous communities are just against that. So there's a bunch of questions. I'll tell you, in the end, my response was, look, I'm willing to pay as much as I would, to fish at a non-Indigenous fishing lodge. I'd be happy to pay that at an Indigenous-led fishing lodge, and I don't need special food. I'd be interested in learning, a little bit about their culture and their history and all that. Do I want to learn how to, build a birch bark canoe? No, I want to go fishing, right? And I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. Maybe when I was a little younger, I wouldn't mind taking an axe and a saw and try and build my own canoe, but no. I don't have that kind of time anymore. One thing I did want to get back to, Steve had a great question, and I'm so glad you asked this, Steve, because this was really cool. And I will be sharing the video because it will answer this question as well as many others. How do they monitor the health of these fish? Well, in this, I want to say it's a ship-like cage, and Lawrence knows what I'm talking about. They have underwater drones. So we're able to deploy drones that will be able to completely encircle the entire boat at different levels, different depths, and they can monitor whether they're eating, whether they're not, whether they have sea lice, whether they have any other kind of diseases. So instead of getting right in the cage, and I'm sure that's probably extremely dangerous, especially when dealing with tuna, but they have these drones and the high definition of these cameras. They're able to pinpoint exactly which fish are infected with what and what they're doing. So great question, Steve. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah. On the east coast of Canada, they've been raising juvenile bluefin tuna in weirs for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right? They set up these weir traps. The tuna swim into them, and then they enclose them and keep them in these weirs, and they feed them. And they can add on 150, 200 pounds onto a tuna over a season, and then harvest it. So this is not unheard of for sure.
No, true enough. All right, I interrupted. You continue to go, my friend.
Yeah, so I would, if you want to get the link to the survey, go to the bluefishcanada.ca website, go to the latest issue of the Bluefish News, and drill down in there, and you can get a link to this recreational survey. I think it's important that, we make our views and opinions and thoughts known on what we're willing to pay for. If we don't indicate that, if we don't say, hey, this, I'll pay for this, I'll pay for that, and I'd like to know more about this and that and the other thing, then Indigenous people could be wasting a lot of time and effort, chasing down potential, marketing ideas with little success. And that's not what we want. We want Indigenous communities in the North to be as sustainable and economically independent as possible.
100%. Agreed.
All right. So here's something interesting. So very low levels of pesticides, right? Getting into the water. So where's that happen? Along manicured shorelines, our cottage properties, farm fields, anywhere we're using pesticides to manage what could be mosquitoes, could be anything. But they're finding out that a brief period of exposure to these pests by fish can not only impact the health of the fish, but for multiple generations on. There's the impacts, and I'm not talking about bioaccumulation in the fat tissue. It's a neurological issue that's passed on, and they're finding that it doesn't take much pesticide to impact fish health for multiple generations going forward.
So I have to ask, and I immediately want to ask the question because there's they talk about the runoff. Yeah, the spinners, and they're showing sawfish that are going around in circles, other fish that are going around in circles. They can't pinpoint exactly what is to blame, but they obviously know that they have a blue-green algae problem, Lake Okeechobee, and every time there's a big weather event, it flushes out all kinds of nutrients and pesticides, and it's now starting to have a concerning effect on the fish population down in Florida. Yeah. And I see it in the news feeds of all the social media. It is becoming an alarming concern. Can we? Would I even suggest to point out that this might be the root of it?
It's a good question, Scotty. And actually, a friend of mine, he's professor at Dalhousie University in Halifax. He does a lot of shark research, and he brought this to my attention. He's been sending me some emails on this, and he thinks exactly what you're thinking. This is in the sediment. It's not necessarily a blue-green algae neurotoxin. I mean, they've been dealing with that for a long time. He thinks this is more problematic in that this is a buildup of toxins in the bottom of the waters in the sediment. Something stirred it up. Something happened to stir it up, and it's being released, and it's causing fish of all species, sharks and many other species of fish, to go into this crazy pattern where they just spin in circles and then eventually die. And we're just finding out too that we're having similar toxic issues in the St. Lawrence River as well with the sediment in the St. Lawrence River. So this could be the canary in the cage, right, for letting us know that, hey, we've got to stop. We really need to stop dumping crap, and it's coming out of our sewage, right? It's the stuff that's coming out of our sewage. It's not the floaties, but it's all the other chemicals. And
well, I mean, the problem has definitely always been there when it comes to dumping effluent, discharge, what have you. But what what has certainly not been there in the past, that is certainly a problem now, and we see it in Canada and especially in the States, is population growth. The population urban centers that we call the big cities are starting, in my opinion, to become too populated. That concentration of effluent, Mother Nature just can't deal with it. I know we can't, because we discuss it here all the time. When you have those big water events, the amount of raw sewage that's being dumped into our Great Lakes. So
yeah, 40 million people get their drinking water out of the Great Lakes, right? And that drinking water has to be returned. Like if you pull water out of the Great Lakes to feed a population, whether it's the toilets or their taps, it has to go back into the Great Lakes treated. But the treatment, we know, doesn't pull out all the chemicals. It just gets the floaties out and kills off the E. coli bacteria and, breaks down and everything. But it doesn't get rid of the pharmaceuticals and the chemicals and all the other stuff that's in the water. It's not filtering that stuff out. So
100%.
Yeah, it's building up.
And Corey, to your point, it's something that when I was younger and you'd hear about people drinking well water, never thought anything of it. As we got into, I want to say, the early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, a lot of groundwater that was close to or adjacent to the Great Lakes, we were starting to find that it was not potable anymore, that you'd have to boil it. And then it just became a nuisance. You'd have to actually go further up the escarpment or, inland to get potable well water. So to your point and question, how about our groundwater? Does it affect that too? I want to say that, over the years of this unpotable well water, that maybe it's now, the concentration's gotten so intense that we're now starting to see the effects. What do you think, Lawrence?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, if it's released into the watershed, right? It creeks and runoff. It does get absorbed into the aquaculture, into the aquifers, right? There's a wetland, and wetlands are those big sponges on the ground, not the shoreline wetlands, but the ones not next to bodies of water, and all the melt water and the rainwater gathers there in that wetland, and then it is absorbed into the ground, and then it's passed through the ground and goes into our aquifers, and that's where we get our well water from. So it's just a matter of time, right? It's just a matter of time before it reaches it. And we see these high profile cases in the United States where large chemical companies have been dumping chemicals into the ground, and it comes out of the wells. And we see this too with fracking, right? There's a lot of chemicals used in fracking that are shot down to these old expired oil wells and explodes and cracks the ground, and it releases gas that can then be harvested and sold. And those chemicals stay in the ground, and they will then pass through those cracks that they've created in the shale and the rock underground and get into the aquifers. And we see all sorts of cases where it's contaminating well water. So there are many ways we could mess things up down there, that's for sure.
No kidding. And to your point, just to take that a little bit further, watching a page today, while I was watching the eclipse unfold, they were showing earthquakes, and it was obviously it was a globe, and it would, every time there was a seismic event, whether it be an earthquake or whatever, it would pop up. There would be an alarm. And the amount of fracking that is done in the States, and we're guilty of it as well, but the amount of fracking that's done in the States, that they actually have warnings to people, because what you might think is an earthquake is just the results of this fracking. And it is so concentrated in places like Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas. It is mind-boggling the amount of fracking that is done, that is actually starting to show up on these seismic graphs.
Oh, yeah, Alberta and British Columbia as well. We have a lot of fracking going on there as well, and it triggers earthquakes. Absolutely can trigger earthquakes. And
right on, dude. What else have you got for us?
All right, let's go on. Okay, so herring spawn, right? Herring on the west coast of Canada. Herring have been in a bit of a tight situation, and the fishing has been postponed in many areas of British Columbia. But when they spawn and they release the eggs and the eggs float down onto the kelp leaves, it creates such an intense purple color in the ocean that the satellites can pick it up. So they can, using satellite technology, they can see where the herring are spawning.
No way.
Yeah, by the color. That's pretty wild.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Can you imagine how many little herring it takes to create a big purple bloom in the ocean? So it's pretty impressive. Now they spread it, and then it sticks to the kelp leaves, and that's where the eggs will grow out and then eventually hatch. And indigenous people traditionally have harvested those kelp leaves and scraped the eggs off that, and it's quite a delicacy. And they've actually found markets for these kelp encrusted leaves overseas. And but the government, the DFO says, no, you can't harvest, not this year. No harvesting those leaves. We need the herring eggs in place so we can rebuild herring stocks because they've been over harvested. So good for DFO for exercising precautionary principles there and saying no to fishing for a little while to rebuild fish stocks. When we see this happening more and more, say no fishing here for a while, no fishing there for a while. We've got to get used to it, but it's all part of the. It's not a scary thing. It doesn't mean the sky is falling. It means we need to give it a little rest and make sure that things are happening that are going to rebuild fish stocks so we can manage them better. We went too far. We know that now, but it's not too late. And let's get them recovered. You look in the States, you see this happening all the time. Yeah. And the people who fish, recreational fishers and commercial fishers, they just, step back. It's going to mean, we have to find something else to do for the next 2 or 3 years. But they know it's for the good of everybody.
True enough. We got some good advice here, Corey, when it comes to pesticides. He's recommending us use natural plant oils to get rid of bugs in your grass.
Garlic oil.
Yeah. He's also mentioned here that Vexcon is a pest terminator. All natural plant oils to get rid of bugs. That's interesting, Corey. Thanks for letting us know about that there are remedies or at least alternatives to using some of this harsh stuff that we have already on the market, but there's organic, more natural ideas as well. So that's awesome. Thanks so much.
The goal when you're using this kind of thing is you have to watch your weather because it's organic, and when it rains, it washes it off again, right? So it's not like some of these pesticides that are just they stick to the plant and they don't wash off, and so it's you have to be a little bit more careful. Watch the weather, put it out there, make sure you got 4 or 5 days before the rain hits. And then when the rain hits, it breaks down the oil, and there's nothing toxic anymore in some of these organic products. So we could do it. Just you have to be a little more careful, and it might cost a little bit more. You might have to apply it once or twice or 3 times, but you get the same results or even better.
Amen. And you know what? You're doing a huge justice to the earth and Mother Nature and the environment by looking for alternative means. We got time for one more, Lawrence.
Okay, well, Invasive Species Center have said that they have found a fertile grass carp in the Bay of Quinte. So, get ready to catch some grass carp and get them the heck out of there.
Bay of Quinte.
Yeah.
Oh, so disheartening.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's like the eclipse. We knew it was coming. I don't know what more could we have done to stop it? I don't know. It's I will say the only thing that I take enjoyment in, and I cry at the same time, is that I'm not going to be around to see them infiltrate our Great Lakes. But I am sad for those who will, because it is going to be something that, we'll be flipping in our graves when we have folks like us who are going to be doing podcasts in the future complaining about the grass carp situation and why didn't the Lawrences and the Scotty Martins of the world do more to stop it. I really wish we could. I wouldn't even know what to suggest at this point.
I don't know. They didn't offer any suggestions. How do you catch a grass carp? Right, tie a leaf to your hook and flip it out there. I mean, that's what these things eat. They're like cows. They eat weeds.
Yeah.
They're not eating, jerk baits and rapellas and senkos and things like that.
Well, maybe we can commandeer some of those helicopters that are flying around the schools of tuna to come do the same with these grass.
Do a little Harry carry on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and just take them inland somewhere where they're not going to infiltrate anything else. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It is, as you said, just the beginning of what is about to happen with these fish. Not looking forward to it. Thankful to a certain extent that I'm not going to be around to see it through its fruition, but I am also sad that we are going to leave this our fish community in worse shape than when we found it, and that's not the way it should be.
But you know what? Canada is still a great country, and we got tremendous resources and natural resources here. The game's not over. We got lots of great things to steward and take care of, including the Great Lakes. There's still many great things, and we'll see how this turns out. We'll see what happens.
Right on. Well, listen, Lawrence, thanks so much for joining us as you do every Monday. Glad to have you back. Glad that you survived your eclipse.
I know. I tell you, the traffic. It was my wife. She was driving in the traffic, man. But I knew a quick way home. So I said, okay, let's get off the highway, and we shot up some back roads and snuck in. And I'm looking, I go, oh my God, it's 7:00. I texted you, I sent you a message. I'm coming.
It's wild. Well, glad you made it back in time. Glad you made it back safe. And we look forward to seeing you again next week on CFN Live. Lawrence, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Scotty.
Right on. We got Jason Barnucz, Owen Brock, and of course, the one and only Trevor Barnucz coming up right after a word from their sponsor.
Want to know the difference between power bait and other soft plastics? Ask the fish. Berkeley scientists have. Thousands of flavors tested on thousands of fish. Natural. Man-made. Every bait that's ever hit the water. No matter the shape, size, or color, power bait is the only one that is scientifically proven. Fish bite and will not let go.
Right on, lads. How we doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, doing
Are
good.
the Jays winning?
The Jays are winning 1-0.
They're winning right now, 1-0.
Right on. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking some time away from the Jays. As Jay mentioned, in your life, there's baseball and there's fishing. And you know what? There's really nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's good parenting as far as I'm concerned. Biggest takeaway from yesterday, you folks were at CanCast. Saw you walking around doing some great videos, Trevor, that you posted this morning. What was one of the biggest takeaways, positive or negative, from the show?
That crowd, man.
Yeah.
Like, it was 10 minutes to walk from one end to the other.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I've never witnessed a show like that before.
Yeah. It really was.
Like, what I loved about it was, one, the crowd. I couldn't even leave. I couldn't even walk through the place until about, let's say, it opened at 9. So I want to say, Scotty, it wasn't until about 11 o'clock I started venturing out of the Berkeley booth and wandering around a little bit. Like, it was full of people, and they were shopping.
Yes.
But I think my big take home was I got to meet a lot of people who, for me personally, there was a bunch of like Eastern Ontario anglers that I only know through social media. And I got to talk to them in person and shake their hand, and a total mix of guys. Some are bait makers, some are work at different companies like Frontenac Outdoors, who we order a lot of our kayaking gear from Frontenac Outdoors. So they had a booth there. So Peterborough is a good location for a lot of companies just to kind of, just to see each other in person and talk a little fishing and talk a little shop. So it was a great venue for that.
100%. And to Kyle, Sean, and Mark, who put that on, thanks from the industry. We can't thank you enough for your efforts, because to bring us all together, enjoy a day like that was, and make a little bit of money. And I'm sure there weren't too many vendors, if there were any at all, that didn't go home with money in their pocket, because as I said, the amount of merchandise that I saw walking around with people was impressive.
Yeah. Like I can't, I don't know. I've been talking to those three a little bit before the show, and I talked to them at the social. The social itself, that was a heck of an event. Like, man, I saw people there that I haven't seen in so I think over a decade. Some guys, Scotty, like just walking up to the bar, getting a drink, and seeing someone that I hadn't talked to in half a dozen years, and catching up with them. That was just a great event. And just big shout out to those three guys and their whole team. It was so well oiled. Like when we rolled up there at about 8:30, when you see that picture that Pete put up, and you see the lineup coming all the way down the parking lot and then all the way down the block. So we got there. That was at 8:30 when we got there. And I'm like, wow. And then as soon as the doors opened, that line was gone. They had such a well-oiled machine. Everyone was in fast into the show. And I know in the past there was complaints about lineups and how long it took. No complaints this year, man. It was smooth as could be. We'll be back next year. Looking forward to it.
100%. Couldn't agree more, Jay. What has brought us here today is a little something, not that important. I'm just kidding. A couple of weekends back happened in Oklahoma. We have been honored, and I have to say, Owen, thanks so much for bringing us along on this trip. And I also want to thank the Barnuczes for sharing a lot of the videos that we're going to be playing today that led up to it, as well as the moment itself. But Owen, as I said, I can't emphasize this enough. The accomplishment of getting there is the true trophy in this whole experience, and I am so taken back by how positive you are about the whole process, regardless of how you finished in the competition. Just being there meant the world, dude, and that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, for sure. It was super cool. It was super cool being down there and just getting to that experience and getting to learn a new lake like that. After that, I'm so driven to get back down there. It's ridiculous. I'm going to work my butt off to get back next year, but it was definitely like, if I never make it again in my life, it was super cool to get that one.
That's awesome. Speaking about driven, speaking about, there's a lot of undertones here with this story, how young you were. Basically you got introduced into kayak fishing, and dude, you've just taken off. Like it's impressive to see. But I love this video. I want to share a little bit about it. What it does is it gives hope. And in this day and age, with everything that's going on in the world, we need a little bit of hope. And what you've provided young anglers, Owen, is the hope that one day they too can be just like you. So that's the lead up to what was a great tournament for all that participated. It was tough fishing, and we're going to get to all that. But it was interesting to hear some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom from last year's champion, Ross Snyder. Have a listen.
I'm Russ Snyder's 2023 Bassmaster Kayak Series Angler of the Year, as well as championship winner of 2023. We're out here in Oklahoma on 10 Killer Lake for the 2024 Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship. We've got 160 of the best anglers from across the country, coast to coast, California to New York to Florida, to compete this week, Wednesday and Thursday. The top 10 we'll be able to walk across the Bassmaster Classic stage on Friday. We got to wait a whole day to find out the full results. Been out the last few days practicing. The fishing's been pretty tough for me. I know quite a few guys that are catching them though. It's going to take, probably low to mid 90s a day, I think, to be able to pull off the win. I know, I like power fishing shallow. That kind of suits my style. There's a little bit of that to be done here, but the live scopers and the deep clear water guys are definitely going to feel right at home in this lake. There's a lot of brush pile, a lot of rock. I hear guys catching them as deep as 30 feet. So, there's a little bit of everything at this lake, and hopefully I'm the one to figure it out. I know somebody will, though.
And somebody did, as we find out later, and we'll get to that. But Owen, what was it like to rub shoulders with a guy like Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, it was super cool. We talked to him at the Classic Expo after, and he actually ended up in 88th, which is, I got 77, he got 88. So I don't know if that's a sign or something, but he's a really good dude. And just you see him online, you hear him on podcasts and stuff, but to actually see him in person, see that there's regular people like you, it's pretty cool.
That is cool. And to you, Trevor and Jay, you guys did an awesome job. Richard says here, we followed you, and a lot of it was because of what you shared with us, Jay. Trevor, you were there, through thick and thin. Didn't matter what time of morning or time of day it was, you were there supporting Owen. That was awesome to see, regardless of how you finished. Just to see that kind of support, I don't know, it was awesome, and we were so glad to be a part and go along with the ride. But it all started with you folks landing in Oklahoma. But before we get there, Owen, how did you qualify for this again?
So in August of last year, the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters holds a championship, and pretty much the top 10% from that tournament qualify to go down to the national championship in wherever the Classic's held. It's in conjunction with that. And so every kind of state will have their own championship. So you get guys, we see all the plates at the ramps from California to New Jersey to Florida, Texas, everywhere. So it was pretty cool.
And I have to ask too, Chris Takaskos is here, and I have to ask, it was probably pretty cool and refreshing to see some familiar faces as well. Yeah. You went down with a contingent from Ontario. I want to say Canada because, yes, they were all primarily from Ontario, but they represented our nation along with you. And we made a presence. At the end of the day, there was some bags, big bags, personal best bags that were brought in. Tell us a little bit about the actual competition.
Yeah, so day one for me went really good. I had a decent pre-fish. I wouldn't say great, but it was okay. The first 2 days, I was obviously figuring it out a little bit. You hear tons of research online and about this pre-spawn fishing and stuff, but when you get down there, it's so cool to actually be able to learn it. And then I think the second or third day of pre-fish, it got super, super cold.
Yeah.
And I got on a little bite. I went to this first spot by the ramp, and there's just fish blowing up everywhere. And I finally felt in the zone, I could actually kind of make something happen. Pull up to this little school of fish. You see the shad jumping everywhere, and caught a 4-pounder, an 18.5. And then kind of said, all right, let's leave that area. Went up this creek a little more. And then I caught a 19.75, so a 5-pounder. And then we just kind of left, checked some other spots. So I was actually kind of feeling confident going into the tournament. And then I think our last day of pre-fish, we scouted out a couple little spots, just kind of seeing what they were doing. And they were doing the same thing as the day before. And then unfortunately for the tournament, I shouldn't say unfortunately, it went pretty well. But for the tournament, it warmed up a little bit. So I had to adapt a little bit day one. And I caught some nice fish day one, but they were all kind of clones. They were all around that 16-inch mark. And I ended the day just under 80 inches. I did catch my PB spotted bass, though, which was 15 inches. Pretty cool. Can't get those in Canada. And yeah, day one went pretty smoothly. I caught fish all day, fished all the spots I found in pre-fish. And then day two, it was a struggle bus. you see a lot of these really great tournament anglers like the Cooper Gallants and stuff, and they just have this ability to make adjustments so easily on the fly, and just being able to just drop what you're doing and just go try something else when it's not working is a really, really, it's a really hard skill to develop, if we're being honest. But what killed me day 2 was first thing in the morning, I went to my original spot, my starting spot, and got like a 4-pounder on my jerk bait. So I, what's Chris saying?
Did you switch spots on day 2?
You're basically explaining.
No, so I'm running the same pattern on day 1. Caught that 4-pounder, which gave me confidence in what I was doing. Didn't get a bite for the rest of the afternoon, and then I ran all my spots, and then by about 2 o'clock, I had nothing left to fish. So so then I finally started fishing new water, and sure enough, I catch another 4-pounder. But by that point, it was too late to adjust. So
right on.
If I would have made that adjustment quicker, I probably could have put something together. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
The rest of us that are watching that aren't participating in the tournament, we don't get to see sort of some of the little subtle nuances that go on. But who was it? Not from the Ontario team. Who was it that was part of the competition that provided you the best advice?
Yeah, I'd say we met big social media lady, Christine Fisher. She's got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and we're like big fanboys over here. But we were at the ramp the first day of pre-fish, and she walked right over and was talking to us, and we were talking about fishing for like 10 minutes. So it was super cool. Yeah.
That's cool. What was some of the things was there anything in particular that when it came to presentations that you typically don't use in Canada that you use down there?
Yeah. So pretty much the whole week I had a jerkbait locked in my hand, like a deep diving 110 +2. And it's so different than up here, man. Like the way I was catching them, they would school in the backs of these, not in the backs, but like inside of creek channels off the main lake, over like 30 feet of water in the middle of nowhere. You'd just be off some point somewhere, and it's just all of a sudden you see shad start flicking up and then cast out, and there's nothing there. They're just suspended eating bait fish. So it's not like I'm used to flipping a jig and long point or fishing for smallmouth up shallow with a hair jig. They relate to totally different stuff up there. But I just being able to learn it was super cool, and I'm proud of myself for being able to figure that out in such a quick time. Like before this, I'd never caught a bass in the US, so to kind of put the pieces together a little bit and at least catch them the first day was pretty neat.
So that's a great lead to my first, or one of my next questions is, and Trevor, I want you to voice your opinions as well. When it came to pre-fish, and you're pre-fishing the lake, like you said, you've never been on, never caught a bass that side of the border. What were some of the things that you learned in pre-fishing that you were excited or perhaps interested in learning something new that you'd never learned before fishing that body of water when it came to targeting bass?
Well, I can chime in. Let me tell you, watching, picture like the Gulf of Mexico and you're seeing like schooling tuna. Okay, it's the exact same thing.
That's awesome.
Us Canadians, we don't see that. So like watching these like 3-2 pound largemouth going airborne for these shad is like, there's nothing like it. That was one of the cool. I wish I got a video of I got a couple of videos of shad jumping, but never a video of a largemouth like coming out of the water. That was awesome. And for Owen to pattern that on day one was so cool, like getting to view that. Yeah, it was awesome.
For those who fish walleye, I hate to digress, but those who fish walleye, when the mayfly hatch occurs and you start to see these walleye boil, and of course, we're fishing 20 feet of water, I can't imagine how disheartened you were initially when you saw this going on, that you're presenting drop shots, you've got depth, you've got swim baits, you've got search baits, you've got all kinds of stuff, and yet these things are all coming to the surface. Did you panic at all when you saw that?
Not really. I kind of had an open mind going into it, and I tried that stuff the first few days and didn't have much luck. And then my first fish of the trip actually was on these like tire walls in front of the marina over like 50 feet. And I could see all the shad on my 2D, and I cast out a jerkbait and caught one. So kind of immediately I knew that was a pattern. That's what they were doing that time of year. So I kind of,
is that primarily what you used, Owen, was the jerkbait or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, yeah, all day one, every fish was on the jerkbait. And then day two, I caught 1 or 2 on the jerkbait, and then switched and fished a football jig a bit and caught that nice one at the end. But
well, I want to congratulate you on your finish. Getting there, as I said, is your true achievement and your true trophy. I hate to even think about it, but would there be anything that you would have changed on what you threw, what you presented, areas that you fished? Would you have changed anything up?
Yeah, the second day I definitely would have gone and just fished slower. I think I was too amped up. I wanted to just get a limit and just have that peace of mind, because day one, they were everywhere. I was catching them all over the place on that jerkbait. I feel like everywhere I went, I could catch a fish. And I was too amped up day two, and I just need to slow down and pick those spots apart a little more and just be more open-minded and be able to put down that jerkbait and fish a bit slower. But
now, is there anything that you can carry back to this side of the pond that you're going to use in upcoming tournaments for this season?
I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's so different, but I think just being in a big tournament like that, and really it tests you mentally and physically. So I think coming back, I'm definitely going to be a much better angler. And yeah, it makes you think about like how the bass behave up here. Like they definitely act similarly. I bet in some of the lakes I fish, I was talking to Trevor on the water, I bet they suspend like that and eat bait fish or bluegill at least. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited to try some techniques like that this summer.
Cool.
Might not be with the jerkbait, maybe a glide bait or a crankbait or something like that. But
and forward facing sonar, did it have much of effect in this tournament?
I think for some anglers it did. I think it really depended on, when you talk to some anglers, there's been so many podcasts and interviews after this, and it's been cool listening to all the other anglers and how they were successful or not successful, depends on how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
And a lot of them used forward facing sonar, but also a lot of them didn't use it very much. They found that some of the areas they were fishing, it kind of helped them find the bait, but once you found those areas, it didn't help you necessarily catch the fish. You sort of had to do that on your own, right? Without forward-facing sonar. So, and then, how it was won with Drew, like he didn't use it at all, right? He souped up his kayak to go as shallow up the river as far as he could to get away from everyone. That was his plan.
Interesting.
One thing that was really cool, though, I think, and Trevor and I talked about this yesterday coming out from CanCast, was, and I think, Chris's day one, Chris had a tough day one and then came out with the biggest bag of the tournament on day two, right, from Ontario, and he's on the call tonight. So the one angler they interviewed, what did he get, Trevor, 7th place?
The guy
we listened to the podcast?
Yeah, he got 7th.
So what he did was he found that, and I haven't even talked to one about this yet, but I was going to. So he had a really good practice on the Friday, Saturday before the tournament, which was really nice, warm, stable weather. And then it got cold Sunday, Monday, and then it started kind of warming a little bit on Tuesday. And the pattern that he ran on that first couple days of practice really helped him out in the tournament more than what he caught during the cold weather, because that first couple of days of practice was a warming trend.
Yeah.
And then the tournament was a warming trend. Like it steadily warmed up from Wednesday into Thursday for that event. And if you weren't there enough to pre-fish to notice that, you never would have clued into that. And he even talked about how the water levels were fluctuating and how he figured out that, and we didn't even think about this, he said he saw fish spawning in the backs of creeks, or what at least they looked like they were trying to spawn on the Saturday. So that's 4 days out, right? Mm-hmm. And then the water level dropped but it dropped at only a few inches. So those fish he caught on Monday, by the time Tuesday rolled around, they had moved out to like flats and points adjacent to spawning bay. So he had to follow them out. And so some of these movements, shad was still important, but you had also had to find the fish where they had moved to. And we didn't think the water level dropped a lot when we talked, but I guess it dropped enough for some anglers to notice. And that's the skill level that we're at, is these subtle details that, like, you know, we didn't talk during the tournament because we weren't allowed to, but like that's a crazy little detail, right? And that's the kind of stuff that you got to do. So
100%. Yeah, that stuff's fascinating. And I'm going to assume, Trevor, you took all of this in like a sponge, and I would imagine you're probably pretty geared up for this upcoming season. When does it start for you two? When's the first kayak tournament?
Well, we don't know yet. It's well, you see, it's guaranteed going to start July 20th in Long Point Bay.
Yep.
But we don't know yet for a tournament-wise where we're going to start. But we know we want to take advantage of that Zone 20 fishery soon. If not, largemouth also opens there 2 weeks, I think, a week earlier than our season.
Yeah.
So we just want to go have some fun, fish a new body of water, which honestly, like another pressured fishery, it's just a body of water that we haven't tried yet. My dad has, like 10 years ago. It's just something cool, local to us, sort of, that we want to try. But our season doesn't start for a while, but we'll be down at Mississippi Lake for sure. And I've done lots of studying already, but we're gonna start doing a lot of research.
Yeah,
soon.
like we'll probably there are some tournaments coming up. Like there's the Ontario Kayak Bass Trail and the Ontario Kayak Bass Masters. Their season starts on Lake Nipissing, which has the early bass season now. So that's on the Saturday of the long weekend in May. So we'd like to try and make it for that. We'll see. We got a lot of things going on this spring between school and work and things like that. So we'd like to try and make it for that. And then, honestly, Scotty, once the tournament season starts, there's a tournament about every other weekend right through till the middle or end of September. So we're going to try and fish as many as we can and just kind of go from there. But this year's qualifier is on Mississippi Lake out Carlton Place. It's a lake that fish is pretty small. It's a bit of a stingy lake. It's going to be a tough fishery, but I think that's good. I think that tough fisheries really, you got to be good to shine in those places. And there are big fish there, but they're hard to come by. There's a lot of, I think the trick there is going to be filling your card with your 5 fish a day and hopefully for a big bite or two. So that's going to be the big challenge. So I know these guys are up for that. So that's not till September, but I know these two, and they've already been talking plans pretty steady. They're being pretty quiet right now, but they got big plans this year. So
That's awesome.
Even pre-bass, like bass fishing, we got some big video plans. We like our sucker fishing. We're already planning what we're gonna do then.
Yeah. So got a lot of stuff to fish for this spring before bass season opens up. But I see, Chris. So
I didn't want to ask the question. I was just going to say, Chris. Chris wanted to ask.
Get video of it.
Yeah,
we did get video of it. We might post that. I don't know.
It'll be posted at some point. Yeah, go ahead. Tell them about the big. It's hard to talk about big fish, but it is a cool story. Go ahead.
It sucks, but yeah, day one, I didn't lose many fish. I maybe lost 1 or 2 fish all tournament. Even all pre-fish, I hardly lost.
I don't think you lost one fish in pre-fish. Yeah,
which is for a jerkbait, that's phenomenal. But the one fish I lost day one had to have been a 20-inch smallmouth, and it would have put me up probably in the top 20 at least.
Yeah.
I'd have been. It was super close where I was around that 80-inch mark, but that fish would have bumped me up big time.
You would have called like a 13-inch largemouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have bumped you up 7 inches.
Yeah,
so that would have put you in the top 20.
And it was honestly, Scotty, Owen. So Owen's fishing along a bank. Okay, we're in parallel. I'm behind him. He's fishing the bank. And he hooks into this smallmouth, and on the one side of his kayak, the smallmouth jumps, comes off, and Owen turns and looks at me, and I'm just like, "Oh, dude!" I felt that one here. That one sucked. But
we couldn't talk, obviously. So Trevor was I would text Trevor like, "How's it going? How's he doing?" And Trevor would just text me back, And then Trevor's like, he just lost a fish. And I'm like, oh. And then Trevor says, I just saw Owen's soul leave his body. So, like, and I saw the video. Like, it was I wanted to see it, and the boys showed it to me on the action cam on the DJI cam, and I'm like, yeah, like I said, Owen, that would have bumped you up 6 or 7 inches. Like that was a tough fish to lose. It was right at the kayak. You saw the jerkbait just like pop out of its mouth, like just you could see the fish kind of curve at the side of the. I know I'm reliving it. Because you're using like a lighter colored jerkbait, like a white one, so it's kind of obvious to see it go through the area. Like,
it just had the back treble in its lip.
Yeah,
and it just came up right beside the kayak, tail walk.
And he had never caught a smallmouth all week.
And the
all week, the only one he hooks, which not all we do, but smallmouth fishing is like what we do a lot. Most
and we couldn't catch one.
And then the one he gets on, he lost it. That's that's fishing, right? Not catching. So that's how it goes.
But Owen, to think, like, you know, that fish, you're that close, like you're right there. You know, as I said, we can think back. Hindsight's 20/20, but the fact that a fish like that would have put you, you know, very close to the lead, it just goes to show you're right there. Like you're right there. So not only did you qualify for the tournament, but it's obvious you were meant to be there. And as I said, we were really hoping that you were going to do really, really well just for yourself, just because you had put a lot of effort and time into it. And as I said, we have been loving watching the two of you do all of your little videos, various journeys that you go on, adventures, the fishing that you do with Steph, your family, Trevor. Again, I've relished in it because I've seen this when I first met you, that I knew that the Perry you were going to be at this elite level, and the sky's the limit for the Perry. I can't begin to think where we're going to be 5 years from now talking to Trevor and Owen. If we might even have to pay at that point, Jay.
I know. I just hope they bring me along when they get, you know, when they hit it big time, and they just forget, you know, they don't forget me, leave me in the driveway or something. It's standing there with my thumb out going, hey, I can go too, right? So
now, as a dad, you know, for all his dads,
they wouldn't last more than about 2 days because they run out of food and water pretty fast. So.
We won't even think about it.
Now, there's a lot of dads in the audience that are listening, and Jay, I'd love to get your take as a dad, because, you know, one thing that I would say to people with all the things that I have done in my life, nothing compares to watching your child succeed. When your child succeeds at something, there is no better reward. As a father, you know, obviously you've got to be grounded when you're starting to see things that, you know, we're getting away from the focus of stuff. You got to realign the truck. But you know, what is your take? What is your role in all this, and or how do you see your role in all this?
You know what? Like, so we like to do a little bit of trash talking with the three of us, right? Like we do, and we like beating each other up. We also like
give each other nicknames.
Yeah.
Like
but we also like to boost each other up. Like, you know, like it is pretty cool too. Like when someone catches a good fish, like there's going to be some high fives, hooting and hollering. And I'll say this about Trevor one night. He was really giving it to me. And I said, you know what, Trevor? The worst thing that can happen is my son catches a bigger fish than me. My job's done. And he's like, that's not even fair. That's not even fair you could say that, because that's like the ultimate dig on him that I've done my job. Like
if I catch a fish, it's his. Like, I
true.
Just can't, like,
whatever accolades these two get, I get credit. I get some credit. Like I'm not going to take all the credit, but I get some. So like, I win. I win no matter what they say.
Like now, honestly, we couldn't do it without. So
it's all
100%. And like, do your parents fish, Owen? Like, do you come by this naturally?
No, they don't fish.
Fish at all.
No.
Well, sorry.
All right.
We might be seeing trolling a wacky rig in the Long Point Bay OKBT.
So Owen's dad. So I went to high school with Owen's dad. This is the short version. So Craig and I know each other 30 years, and so sometimes I go fishing with, like, we all go out, and I don't even fish some nights. I just paddle. Craig has a kayak too, so I just kind of pedal alongside Craig, and we tell stories and shoot the breeze and some of the parties that we used to go to. Like, we just got like that kind of stuff. These two are off being all hardcore, and I kind of chill out with Craig once in a while. Sometimes I don't chill out with Craig. Some nights I'm into it, and other nights I'm just not into it. I'm just let these guys go at it. So, but Craig has caught some big fish, just like literally trolling. Like he'll just throw something out the back of the kayak and just chug around. And he has no I don't know, no technique, no method. Just kind of, he's just there.
I feel like he just doesn't care, and it just makes him a good fisherman. He's so relaxed all the time that he just.
Every time I talk smallmouth bass fishing with Owen's dad, he always brings up a story with him trolling up in a lake in Georgian Bay in that area. And
Tobermory up in the Bruce.
Yeah. And he's got this crankbait 100 feet out behind him, and he's like wondering why there's a 4.5-pound smallmouth jumping behind his kayak 100 feet away.
Telling me to get over, start casting.
Yeah. And he didn't notice that his rod was doubled over about to fall out of his kayak. We love Craig.
We just learned that if you just want to catch big fish, just follow Craig Brock around. That's really what it comes down to. You got to keep him in your sights.
So Jay, as part of your role, I mean, obviously you're explaining to Owen's parents the significance of what it is. And I mean, obviously they're very proud of Owen and what he's achieved, but you're there to sort of describe, like, this is actually a really big deal.
Yeah. I think it really, I remember the look on Becky's face, Owen's mom, when Owen got his trophy up at Burley Falls, and Chris is there and the rest of the guys, Shane and Ian and Andrew and Chris Wodiak, the other Chris, and they're all there getting their trophies. And Becky looks at me and she's like, "Where's he got to go?" And I'm like, "Oklahoma." She's like, "Where's Oklahoma?" So I said, "We'll talk later." And just honestly, she was a little shocked. She was like, "Wow!" Like she was happy for him, and she was excited about Oklahoma, but she was like, What have we gotten ourselves into? She kind of had that look on her face, right? Owen knew exactly what was going on. Owen had this literally, when you're a little kid and you're looking forward to an event, you would like stick the tickets for the Blue Jays game on your fridge and wait for like 8 months. Owen, you had a fridge. What did you stick on the fridge? Did you stick something on the fridge, your parents said?
Yeah, at the spring fishing and boat show, we got like a little poster for the qualifier event, kind of just talking about the description of it. And I had that on my fridge since February and
last year. So
I should have took a picture of it.
So from February till August, like this is all these two wanted to do last summer. That all the events they fished in didn't matter. It was just qualifier at Stony Lake. So they were driven. Dude, we'd be out on Lake Erie fishing in another tournament, and you'd hear them talking about Stony Lake. I could hear them across the lake talking about Stony Lake.
I want to throw this hair jig at Stony Lake.
Yeah. So. It was honestly a cool experience. I'm proud of these two, and they represented themselves very well. Like we didn't have to go to all the meetings, Scotty. They went to the meetings with me. A lot of the bass guys really well, like Steve Owens, the tournament director. So many great people we met, and I think I told these two. It's all about the moments, these little moments that you're going to remember, and some of the moments are tough, like losing a fish. Forgetting your nav lights on the morning of day 2, little things like that. But this is all part of the learning. Like when we're fishing, Scotty, we talk on this show all the time. Fishing is about learning, and I know these two learn a lot, and they're still learning, and they're going to keep learning, and they've done a good job. They're two very competent young men. I keep calling them kids. They're not kids. They're young men, and they're very, very competent at what they do. So watch out. They're coming for you guys. Tatosco, they're coming for you, buddy. Just keep your head down and keep working. They got you in their sights, man.
Well, the thing I truly love is seeing the amount of Canadian contingent that is involved in participating in these events, and to all those who participated from Team Ontario. A big shout out, hats off to you, to all of you, because you did us so proud. But to you, Owen, congratulations on this journey. Thank you so much for sharing it, Jay and Trevor, for you being along to support it. It truly was awe-inspiring.
Well, and I'll just finish with this. And again, thanks to we're gonna do a thank you video to all the great people that supported us. We're gonna do a video. We're gonna film it down in Turkey Point. We talked to Brad Thompson today. He's going to let us do it at the marina. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll do it. We're taking our time to do it. We want to do it right because we have such a long list of people to thank that helped these boys get to where they did. But I do want to say, and I every time I get a chance to, I want to thank John Dean and all the great folks at the Ontario Kayak Bassmasters and the OKBT for all the work they do. We got to see some of them at CanCast yesterday, and if they didn't provide the pioneers of Ontario kayak fishing, if they didn't provide this platform, these guys wouldn't get to do what they get to do. And it was just it's such a great brotherhood of kayak anglers, and the three of us are new to it in Ontario, but everyone's made us feel so welcome, and it's very grassroots. We love it, and we look forward to spending more time with these guys.
And again, John Dean, this is my thank you to John Dean, because I was too young to actually truly compete. So John Dean kept talking to Bass and actually helped push me, into allow to get these kids into this event. Yeah. So without John Dean and all the organize, this would never ever happen. Yeah. So we're very thankful.
Yeah. So great to hear. Well, listen, I know you guys want to get back to the game. I can't thank you enough for your time. As always, Jay, you come here every Monday, and it's always entertaining, it's always informative, and it's always a lot of fun. So thanks for your time, guys. We look forward to seeing your exploits this coming season. We look forward to seeing you yet again reappear at the Bassmaster Kayak Championship, and I'd love to see the two of you there.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. All right.
Have a great night, guys. Well, there it is. Another show in the books. Thanks so much to CanCast for what was a great weekend. Kyle, Mark, and of course, Sean. Thanks for all of you all you do in the industry, including CanCast. Can't thank you lads enough. To the OFC Nation booth, Moose, Jeff, Sean Quinn, Steve Shaw, and everybody else, Mike Consul, that helped out. Thanks so much for all your help in making what is OFC Nation, and we were on full display. And to all those who came and visited the booth, can't thank you enough. As I said, it's always nice to reconnect. As Jay just said, some folks that he hasn't seen in a while, Jim as well. These shows allow us to do that. And thanks for doing it. Thanks for all those who came by and said hi. Can't thank you enough. Well, listen, there's lots of stuff coming in CFN land, OFC Nation land that we're going to get to. Unfortunately, Moose didn't make it tonight. We will be talking about that next week. But in the meantime, I want you guys all to have a great week. And with the weather getting nicer, the fishing's only going to get hotter and more. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'm heading out Wednesday myself out on the big lake, hopefully going to the bar. Not really sure exactly where our destination is. It'll obviously be weather dependent, but I'm looking forward to wetting a line because it hasn't been since OFC Nation 2 up at Camp McIntosh that I have gone fishing. So I'm really looking forward to Wednesday. In the meantime, guys, have yourself a great week. I love you all. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out on the water and catch me a whale. Dave, take us away, buddy.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.